T-minus 30 seconds. T-minus 20 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Good.
You ready for do more in the future? Trap Talk podcasts?
Yes.
Man,
Only Trap Talk. Exclusive.
Yes.
Tell 'em.
exclusive. Oh,
So stop calling us.
Rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with the crop, gotta love it or not. I'm hot from the hop to the rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with the rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with the rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with the rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with everybody, we do it. Everybody, we do it. Do it. Do it. Do it. Rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with the rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with the rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with the rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up.
you are now tapped into the coolest reptile podcast in the world. We are live and direct from NARBC Tinley. Oh my God. Justin KOBYLKA, Ryan McVEIGH, Stephen KUSH, and Bananas. We're sitting in front of Banana Bar right now. What the hell's going on? We're live. Got a couple people I'm suspect of over there, but I think we're going to be okay.
Yeah, he's got a lot for like tomatoes.
Tomatoes? Who's going to go tomatoes?
There's
Projectiles in the air and whatnot, but hey, that's how it goes sometimes.
Listen, thank you so much, everyone. Before we get started, guys, this episode was brought to you by Matthew Summers. Actually, two ball python guys. Go figure, because we're not talking about ball pythons. But brought to you by two ball python guys, very passionate about the reptile shows. Matthew Summers right here. Shout out to my boy Matthew Summers. But collab, because this is a heavy episode at NARBC. These hotel rooms are not cheap, so I had to get another collaboration on this, which was Abe from Abe's Exotic Reptiles, which is a Chicago native who actually knows his deep dishes pretty well. We were talking about deep dishes, and you hard passed on that immediately.
Wisconsin guy.
Thank you for being honest.
I got your cheeses, man, but that's not my thing.
So you're saying, okay, yeah, cheese is everything.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So first and foremost, Justin, how you sleeping, man? How's everything? And I'm serious. Like, how are you sleeping? You sleeping good, or are you not sleeping?
I'm sleeping good.
Yeah.
Slept on the plane on the way here, so I can't complain about that.
So you can sleep on planes?
I can, as long as they're not crashing. I felt like we had a real rough ride in. I was nervous, but
I feel like if you could sleep on planes, you have a cut of making it as a Navy SEAL.
is that what it is?
I swear to God, Google it. If you could sleep on planes,
It's like 90% of it, like 10% something
to
else.
try out for the Navy SEAL.
Oh, there you go.
I made that up.
Yeah.
You say that's kind of a stretch.
I was
Like,
Ryan's like, I don't know this, and
I
that's
have
why.
friends that have family in the military, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's not part of the training. Like, all right, can you sneak in silently and also sleep on the plane?
Okay, but you did get delayed. There was a little bit of a hassle getting over here, right?
Yeah.
4-hour delay.
Yeah.
Which is common coming into Chicago. Why is that? I feel like every time you
It
want
was
to fly
Chicago.
in,
It was Atlanta. So we were.
Oh, it was Atlanta? It was
all the
Atlanta.
airlines in Atlanta were just chaos this morning for whatever reason. So
yeah.
all good here.
How do you feel about being Tinley? This is the first March Tinley in 2 years.
Is it really?
Yeah, can you believe it?
Yeah. Okay.
How do you feel about it?
I'm excited. Back to normal.
You didn't get to see the Friday walk around. Like you weren't here for that.
Missed it, unfortunately.
Ryan, were you here? Did you experience
I came down on Friday and met up with some people and grabbed some stuff, but no, I didn't get to see everybody open up to the other show options.
Right.
Yeah.
But you're all set up. You're ready to go.
Here. Oh yeah, yeah.
And how are things? How are you and Erica? VidTech has been something so inspiring to me because, like, dude, I nerd out about all my animals. And no offense, Justin, I don't nerd out about my ball pythons when it comes to like looking at lighting and stuff. Because we don't provide ball pythons lights because for the most part they don't want lights. I don't know that, but I feel like they're happy in a dark, content place. Sorry. But let me say, what I'm trying to say is based off what I'm put. I know, and I don't know this because I don't provide light for my ball python, so I don't know that. So what I'm saying is, what I'm providing lights for right now, I could see such a crazy interest. I see a complete difference in my animals. My green tree monitors,
They don't even act the same.
they're eating off forceps like it's nothing, you know. And I always thought it was like a whole like oh, they're like hooking up so they get hungry when but no, they're doing it even after the hookup, which is awesome. So I'm saying for somebody who's very passionate all around with what happens in the reptile hobby, I'm saying what is happening right now with VidTech? How's the launch been since you've done it? How are everything?
Been unreal. I am ordering, restocking product as fast as I can.
Consistently.
Yeah, and we're finally have enough stock where I was able to open up wholesale. So starting to get out to like the independent pet stores in the country, and it's cool. When I was in Arlington, a guy came over to me and cut me off while I was talking to somebody. He's like, "Hey, I'm really, really sorry. I have to talk to you quick." I'm like, okay.
I don't blame that guy because he does not stop talking.
I know.
Like I was trying. Hold on. I want to introduce my wife to
I
him
also
so
don't
bad.
have people that stop talking to me. There was a line.
We looked at him talk, but I'll finish you. I want to finish. You finish first.
So this dude cuts in quick. And he's like, "Hey, I'm sorry to cut you off. I gotta talk to him quick. I have to apologize." I'm like, "Okay." He's like, "You were here in September," and that's when I did the Pomona September. Hurt my way over, and it's an awesome trip. And I was talking to him. I'm like, when you turn the light on, have your camera on your phone recording. They see it and they'll react to it. I've seen animals that stop in their tracks, turn 90 degrees, and walk straight at their basking spot when I flick the light on. So I said, make sure you're doing that, because if it happens, you just kind of freeze and don't. It's just incredible to see. So I yelled for Erica. She came in, and I'm like, "She's like, you're recording it?" And I was like, "What?" You know? So he came up and he's like, "You told me that," and I went home and I was like, "Yeah, whatever." And he said exactly what I told him would happen did. So he goes, "I left the T5 on there. I put it on the cold side. I turned it on." And he goes, and she stood right up, walked right over to it, flattened out and basked, and turned really dark and sat there for 30 minutes.
Okay, so I mean, if it's one thing, like, what is it about dogs that everyone loves? It's like you get a reaction from a dog. A dog shows you something that, like, either you're doing good for it or you're not doing enough, but a dog does something that makes you want to love it more. I feel like these lights are making these reptiles do something what makes you appreciate them. And I'm telling you, I'm geeking out over it, bro. Like you can tell.
So it's funny because the biggest impact that these lights have over anything else is the one thing that has been said in the industry for a very long time to either be a lie or just not really be necessary. And it's 100% because of the UVA. So UVA affects their serotonin development in their brain. Same thing with us. If you walk outside on a cloudy, rainy day, you don't feel as happy as when the sun hits you. That's the immediate effects of the UVA on your brain through your eyes. So the reptiles have that too. So without it, and there hasn't been, and I don't blame people for not having it on everything. I don't hate Rex and all that stuff because there's been no options.
But then there's also people don't know better because, like, you know, I just preached the other day how people should not be doing weekly water changes. But at the end of the day, that's a standard for so many people. And it's not that you're bad for doing it, but for somebody like myself who pays attention and I'm at home all the time, I see it. And I feel like if I could prevent my snake from being around water with crap in it, then I'm going to switch it out versus saying, it's only been day 3. I'm going to wait 4 days. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just saying, like, there's certain things I feel like we could get away with so much with these animals. And we have been for years. But I don't know. I feel like we're going to talk more about what I feel like would be epic futuristic wise for VidTech, or maybe it's already happening. But other than that,
there's a big launch this weekend, so everybody will get to see the next
another big launch.
Which
let's vert this big launch to Stephen KUSH over at KOBYLKA Cafe.
Go there,
making a huge move with Blake Stewart over at Stewart Design. So shout out to Blake Stewart, by the way.
Big shout out.
But how are things been? You know, as far as that goes.
I mean, things have been great. The rollout's been good. They were great people to work with, really accommodating, really helped us kind of understand how we've gotten to where we are and kind of now what we are doing to reach that next step in our development as a company. And I'm really happy with our new look, the new branding, And I think the future is, just going up here at KOBYLKA Cafe. So I'm very excited. I'm happy we're able to roll it out at Tinley Park, my home reptile show.
I think I'm more excited just to see another example of what Blake Stewart could do for us. You know what I mean? Just to see what he did for US Art, what he's done for Garrett Hartle, Justin, and just and even so, like it's not easy to commit to something like that. Like
No,
I mean, because that brand, that logo of that rodent holding that spoon is so iconic, and I think it's one of the best logos I've ever seen. Like KOBYLKA Cafe, and it's a rodent holding a spoon. Like it just goes so hand in hand. But that push you did, that launch. Jay, come here real quick. You got the hoodie on, yeah. And sorry, this guy does not look as bad as he looks. Like he just wears a beard and he's super rolls the best joints. But come here, can we show the logo real quick?
cuts hair like a real professional.
Yeah, and he does he is a barber at all things.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, go and show this real quick. Shout out. Have you seen it, Justin?
I just saw a picture of it.
Pretty clean,
Love
right?
it.
What do you think?
Looks like my logo turned backwards. No, it's good.
You spent thousands for that. I'm just kidding. Thank you, Jay. I appreciate
No,
it.
it's good. It's good. It's clean.
Desiree Minot in the background. But yes, anyways, huge commitment. Congratulations on that. Other than KOBYLKA Cafe, how are you with the animals, the maintenance, all that? Because I know you're somebody for your age has been nonstop grinding, working, and you're still here, you're still alive.
I'm still here, luckily.
God, I love him.
No, I mean things are going well. I think we're slated to have a good year with the reptiles. This for me is the first year that I hope the scrub python project really starts taking off. Now that we have a full building dedicated to it, very good sized adult group, as well as some other things. Monitors, other pythons, colubrids, ball pythons. We have a lot going on. We have a good team that we're building up over there, and
Dude, shout out to the KOBYLKA Cafe RepTech team.
for real though,
Which I will say, I mean,
in the
to
audience
revert
here.
to Justin, going over to your place and seeing that everything I looked at your new facility, which by the way, still one of the best facilities I've ever stepped foot in, like definitely next level. But you have a team behind all that. You know what I mean? You have people working for you. Which I remember asking you a question was how hard is it to find people that are willing to put the work that you could trust behind these animals? And it ain't easy. I feel like it needs to be destined. Like it has to be like, other than that, then you just got to keep putting in the work until you make it happen, which I feel like that's kind of where you're at, Steven. As much as I feel like the rodent game is so important for you keeping that team so strong to where the reptiles is just basically all you. Like that's your whole
and I can't even really say that anymore. We do have a few people now that are really, helping out kind of everywhere in the operation, be it from rodent production, our shipping department, the reptiles. John's one of our main guys. He's somewhere around here tonight.
Fed John.
He came for
Let me Fed John.
Fed Bub, we
Fed
call
Bub
him.
John.
But John, Brock, and Amanda, they're kind of like the core of our team. They're great people. They're really committed to what we're doing. Been through some hard times with us, but they're in it for the long run. And it's people like that that make what we do possible. Because especially with any of us are doing, it's the scale where you can't do it as one person. And to get to where you want to, there's got to be, a family, honestly, behind it. I'm eternally grateful for the people who we've been able to surround ourselves with. And honestly, it just has kind of fallen into place. Kind of some serendipitous moments of finding that right person at the right time, and it's just kind of clicking.
And obviously, can't leave out VivTech and their team that they've been building, which, I mean, if you guys don't know, Ryan McVeigh comes from being one of the biggest leaders with Zilla at one point. And you did what you did, built many chapters with them, but also took a huge risk by doing your own thing and believing in yourself. And shout to Erica McVeigh. God, listen, It's not like we don't want the women a part of this. I know we have Desiree here. Erica could have been, but I'm just saying, we're going to say a lot of bad language.
She could just way worse than me.
What's going on with the VivTech team? I mean, because right now the biggest move is going as many shows as you can, but how has that been as far as building up the team to help you with all that?
It's been awesome. Honestly, it started out mostly as family. So like, even when I came out and did Pomona, I brought my 10-year-old daughter with me, and she came out and rocked it, and she's awesome. And like the St. Louis and the RBC, my nephew and my daughter come down and do it. So but then we've got a lot of supportive friends and stuff that help. The Herb Society, just the community we've built there. So it's been awesome. Justine Labello is our marketing director, and she's unreal. She's been the marketing director for 2 other billion-dollar companies, and she's our Swiss Army knife, man. She can do anything.
Marketing director, that's huge investment. Like I can only imagine the team that you're building behind this. So you're not fucking around right now.
No,
this
not.
is serious shit.
Yeah.
Which it gets me really excited. You know what I mean?
Me too. Yeah, it's scary as hell, but it's fun.
It's scary, but then again, it should be scary.
Yeah.
Because if it's going to change this draft, how the feeling I have, I'm scared for you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I feel like you're not some fucking one-hit wonder that just stepped foot into this. Like, the reason why I'm so passionate about being friends with Ryan McVeigh, because I only know Ryan McVeigh because of Forrest Fanning. I remember meeting Ryan at San Diego. It was at San Diego Reptile show, and I was as excited as I was to hang out with them. I thought we would like do something local, right? And I'm like, so what's the plan? He's like, yeah, we're gonna drive like 4 hours to Ocotillo, and I'm like, what? I was like, actually, I'm gonna stay back, man. I was like, you have fun, man. And then you know what happened? He complained about the whole trip.
Yeah,
he was bitching the whole time. Why didn't you tell me he was gonna drive this far? And
oh my god, he always been. The only cool herping spots are only gonna be freaking 4 hours away. I'm like, dude, it was an hour and a half. It was all highway. You basically could have slept. Shut up.
But
and you found 30 different species in 4 hours.
There was something that happened in this fucking world that made me avoid to see that side of Forrest. I never saw the bitch throwing a fit Forrest, and everyone has seen it but me. Yeah. And I'm like, well, I'm kind of glad, because I throw bitch fits. Like this guy.
Hey, I know what you're talking
he was
about.
like, explaining Forrest, and sometimes you want to and Desiree is like, you remind me of Forrest. So I was like, so you trying to say you wanted to hit me a couple times, Steven? He's like, yeah.
Only a little slap and a tickle.
But everyone can throw. Slaps kind of wake you up sometimes.
Yeah, put you in line,
Okay, listen, in all seriousness, the hobby is evolving in many ways. You want to know one crazy way? Well, first off, my man Justin KOBYLKA.
Yeah.
Everyone knows Justin, ball pythons, right? Ball pythons, which fucking cool. I love it. But this guy recently got a chondro at Bill Stiegel's house.
Yes.
Which
It's hard not to.
Yes.
Yeah. When I saw him there, I was like, oh, something's happening. I was like, this isn't just like, hey, thanks for eating our food and leaving.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which I respect because, so many eyes on you right now, Justin, like in good ways and weird ways. But what I'm saying is like, there are a lot of people that are motivated by your moves, by like, what kind of projects you have going. And one of the things I'm huge, like it was ball pythons for my foundation, right? But the next move was chondros. So to see you going from ball pythons, and I know you have Bolins, but to go to chondros, I feel personally you're gonna love chondros. Like somebody who's very, persistent, and I don't know, man. I really felt like you should have your lab coat. Like you should have a lab coat where you're at, because I feel like you're that busy behind everything that you think of. But more importantly, like how's it been so far having a chondro in the mix? I know it's only one, but
it's one, but we've enjoyed just watching her a lot. It ended up being a little girl. We didn't know until we texted at the show there the next day, but
it's a girl then.
It's a girl.
It's huge.
Yeah. She's doing amazing, and we had a lot of fun setting it up and just watching her every day. Just going through our first shed this morning without leaving. So yeah,
epic.
Exciting.
And the one thing about, I don't know, okay, we can admit, I mean, there are there was one thing I heard about ball pythons that as they get older, they get uglier. And you're changing that big time because you're proving that's
it's taking some work to make it not
taking
true,
work, but now we're going past that, right?
Sure.
But with these chondros, that's not the case.
I don't know. I like them as babies too, though.
Oh my God. Wait until 8 years from now, what happens to that snake? I'm telling you, the transition, because of Bill Stiegel production. So you got to understand the bloodline. Did you just laugh right now? I thought you were excited. Because he understands Bill Stiegel heat. Like getting that guy's bloodline as your first snake, and for you to just see the transition for this,
it's up there.
You are going to be hooked, my man. That's probably the best position you could probably be in. Yeah.
I look forward to seeing it.
Yeah, definitely. Awesome. And I would definitely, the whole sheds are something you will see, or a shed could make, and this. I mean, one thing I love about Ryan, he's diverse in everything. So anything, species, or whatever I talk about, he knows everything what I'm familiar about. But every shed with the chondro matters because maybe it's not as drastic of a change, but it changes with every shed. Either the contrast, the blues. But with your. Do you remember the was it Jaeger or do you remember who it was that you got that
With the lineage of
the
it,
lineage?
I don't
If
remember
you're
off the
gonna
top
be
of
a
my
comic
head.
guy, you should know
I
this.
know. It's hard to remember mine around the lineages versus mutations.
Super difficult.
Imagine.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, I'm gonna tip my hat to you if you were able to just get if you become Patrick Holmes and become like what you are with the ball pythons. I'd be.
I'm nervous too. I'll be honest. I'm nervous about becoming good at green trees and slipping when it comes to ball pythons because there's so much like in ball pythons, constantly changing, watching out there what's going on. Like if I turn my focus for a little bit, I'll go back and like, oh, what's going?
Right.
So it's gone. I lost it. You know what I'm saying on the other side. So it's like,
I mean, wouldn't you guys both agree that like essentially like having 20 green tree pythons and having 20 ball pythons, I think it's easier keeping 20 green tree pythons in a sense because how much you don't need to mess with them. I mean, I know you don't. I don't know. What do you really think?
It depends on your passion, dude. It always does. I can tell you that something's super easy, and then you'll try it, and you'll be having an enormously hard time with it, and then
So true.
you'll do something super like that you love, and then I won't be able to do it
I
because
think it's because I love them more.
yeah, well, like if you're passionate about it, you're paying attention,
That's
you're
so
on it, you're
true.
watching. If it doesn't drive you, then you're just gonna kind of stumble, and then you get out of it or you pass it off or whatever.
yeah, you're right.
So
But here's the thing. This is why like that drive I still have with my ball pythons. That's why I have what I have. I don't just have whatever just so I can have as many clutches as I
but that's
possibly
still that passion, but it's
That
just there.
passion,
Now
right.
I'm consolidating morphs that I like and building things I like, not building a ton of everything.
No.
So, but that's that passion.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I talked to a good friend of mine overseas, and he's very and Casper. Casper's very passionate about how much hoarding goes on in the hobby, and like unnecessary hoarding,
Yeah.
right? And I feel like depends how it looks. I mean, if you're taking care of that hoarding and it's thriving and it's okay, then okay. But where do you see the balance? Where do you see like the overkill with hoarding?
The balance, you're using hoarding wrong, and I'll tell you this is what
Please tell me. Yeah, I'm sorry.
No. A big collection isn't hoarding. Hoarding is when you have a big collection and you're no longer taking care of it, and the animals are ethically not being taken care of and are suffering. That's when you're no longer able to control the chaos that you're hoarding or that you're keeping. That's when it becomes a hoarding.
It's a case by case
Yeah,
situation.
so
There's no one size fits all definition.
Yeah,
of
so
hoarding.
you got Justin's got however many thousand snakes, not a hoarder, but you could have a guy that has 10. They're all in crap conditions. They're not well cared for.
I look at that as
hoarder.
hoarding because I'm looking at hoarding as A&E. You know the A&E show, like the hoarders, and like you walk in and there's probably like roaches and stuff.
Yeah.
I don't look at a clean, professional rack, the maintenance as hoarding. I don't look at a room that's filled to the brim, but well maintained as hoarding.
Yeah.
Right? So I guess you're right. I'm
And
not.
hoarding is like an actual, when you talk about it that way, it's actually like a medical condition. And that definition is when it becomes detrimental. So having
Which
a
is
lot
still
of
happening,
something
though.
is a collection. I can have 10,000 baseball cards. That's or 10 billion of them. That's fine. But if they're all in moldy boxes ruining my house, that's not fine. So kind of difference having a collection versus hoarding. And that's why I look at it in the reptile industry too.
How about what if you consider your identity, right? So you're emotionally dependent on this object to create your own identity. That's part of hoarding as well.
Yeah.
Right. So
When you tell me
That's
your
what
ball
I'll work.
python's an emotional support animal, that's hoarding. Shut up. Go home.
you're making you're putting a lot more on the animal than it was designed to.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And the industry and everything you love. You're risking it because if you need a snake to leave your house, never leave your house.
Yes.
By the way, real quick, if you want to shout to the super chats right now, I just want to say any super chat that is dropped during this legend ass episode gets donated to U.S. Art. And I've been doing that since the
Hell
beginning.
yeah.
Because he told me to. I'm just kidding. It's because he gives me free balls.
Yeah, right.
No, but really, guys, I appreciate all the super chats. Big time. My man, Antoine Hood, holding it down, head of security for the episode, not letting any of you weirdos get close to us. Autographs after the show. Thank you so much. And then Desiree Monat, knee deep in tartar. Whatever that means. That sounds weird. Let's remove that. I feel uncomfortable. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
There's a fish joke there, and I just don't want to reach for it.
I'm not in the mood for fish right now. Okay, so overall, real quick. So, I mean, other shows you've been at prior to Tinley that's happening this weekend, what has the overall feel been like? Do you feel like we're getting close to normalcy again? Like the way you are going to these shows and seeing how the crowd's showing up? And I mean, what's your good gut feeling about it right now?
Yes and no. We are getting back to more normal. We're having more shows. There's less strict regulations with it. There's less, the maximums are a lot more loose, which is nice. But at the same time, we're seeing really chaotic numbers of people through the doors. Like one show, like Arlington was way slower than I've seen it in the past. But at the same time, that was a thing that would happen. That was a show that I'd have a really so thick weekend I couldn't even leave the booth, or I'd have a slow one, and there was never like an in between. So I don't know. And I see all these other shows where I expect it to be a lot. There's not much. You expect it not to be much. That gets packed. It's just been really weird.
And then Justin, for you, I mean, I know your shows are minimal nowadays, right? I mean, from somebody which I couldn't believe used to pop up at Pomona and stuff like that, and to see that kind of commitment, bravo. You know what I'm saying? But now, you have a team like we were talking about, and like you could fly in late and still have everything held down, which
Sure.
super cool. That is amazing to have something built like
Makes
that.
it possible.
Makes it possible.
Yeah.
But shoot, you've been to Arlington. You've been to the most recent commonly shows that have been happening.
Yeah.
How do you been feeling about the shows recently? I mean, you have a good feeling about it so far?
I do. I feel like they're changing in the sense that it's hard to explain. I think the pandemic retrained the vendors in a big way to not be dependent on shows for sales, right?
Yeah.
So it retrained a lot of us, say us because I was already doing it, but a lot of other people who couldn't go to shows, they now are forced to create a Morph Market account, start to actually work in this way online. And it also trained a lot of people to find suppliers for their stuff online when they're used to going to the shows. And so now that I think they're slowing down. I think so. I think it's because of the retraining of our behavior through the pandemic. And what I've seen from the show since then is, since we've started coming back, is it's now more about industry hangout in a way, because which is fine in a lot of ways. Yeah,
Right.
It creates the community. But we'll see. We're very early into this. We may go right back to how we were.
And I feel like at the end of the day, there was a point where shows in general were always low key.
Yeah.
And because of this big dinker of a weirdo situation that this world got hit with, maybe we are like you said, only the more diehard people are showing up to these shows right now. You know what I'm saying?
That's how a lot of industries too, is they become bigger and bigger and more mainstream. The trade shows tend to become more about industry insiders.
Yeah.
He's a troublemaker.
Right? That's just how it works generally.
This guy eating. Put this guy back here. What the snake is a fat man? You support this guy. Chris Eaton.
Some love for the big dog. There we go.
Shout out to my boy Chris Eaton.
I love Chris.
I love you so much, dog. Honestly, let me say, I have so many inspiring episodes that I can think about, but I waited so long to bring someone like Chris on, because how many podcasters did I bring on? Really, if I do bring someone who does podcasts, they're mainly like animal influence and stuff. Chris has seen so much and is mainly passionate behind his podcasting.
Yeah.
And I can tell you right now, I've never been so excited to go back and forth with somebody, because Chris says it how it is. He doesn't fucking care. He just doesn't care. And and shout out to the homie Will Moros, because you know who Will Moros is.
Will's awesome.
At the end, Will's awesome. And listen, I'm a ball python guy at the end of the day. Will is legendary in my book. You are, and if you're in the ball python game, you know who Will Moros is. Wait, who are we talking about? Oh, Christine. So I asked Christine about he's like, Christine said, I don't really fucking know any Canadians. I don't really like. He said, we don't know any Canadians. I was like, you don't know Will Moros? He's like, man, I just don't give a fuck.
It's true.
I was like, oh, the most honest answer out of that man's mouth. Which, dude, honestly, I'm just saying, I feel like what's driving this podcast is honesty. Just saying how it is, man. Because at the end of the day, as much as this world's evolving, people are starting to see through people's bullshit.
Yeah.
It's really been fake for so long. A lot of this gimmick shit, and I don't know, man. Like, I got people out there I support who are influencers behind the camera on YouTube, but there's a line that's been crossed so many times, and I see it now. It makes my stomach a little nauseous. It makes me feel like I'm tasting sour milk, because it's acting. I don't like. Why are you acting? I don't like acting. What is there to act about? You know what I'm saying? And I'm saying because I could tell somebody who puts energy on a camera, and when it's off, the energy is gone. And it's like, why can't you be that same person just Like you're saving it all for the camera.
Well, that's just the people who their ego, their persona is more important than them to the animals. The animals are their vehicle to that instead of them being a vehicle for the animals.
So they do a surgical procedure online and put it on YouTube and completely ruin the industry by being a egotistical dick.
Something like that. Something similar to that.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
How's that for honest?
I mean, listen, at the end of the day, like that's not meant for everyone.
It's not like
Like, for instance, that's something where like do it with your friends. Like that was like needed because what else are we going to do to hit these numbers? And that's what's happening with a lot of these animal influence YouTubers. They are so desperate, and YouTube is becoming professional at dinging people's content. Animal content is getting hit harder than anything else. Chandler's Wildlife, Tyler Nolan, all these people that are normally getting all these crazy views, they're getting half the views now. And guess what's happening to all these people? They're getting more desperate. They're doing the most stuff. Like I'm starting to see stuff that I'm just not like. Listen, I'm not going to hate you for it, but I'm not going to be a part of that because I don't understand that. That means you don't care about the animals. You care. The only reason why you have the animals that you have is so it can keep your fucking fake shit that you got, the persona going.
Yeah.
And like, Justin, the most like as big of a leader as you are the most like, how do you say it? You are so non-phony because you have literally documentation in college before knowing what any of this could be. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you have a passion that goes back to why I look at KUSH the way KUSH is. Like, I met KUSH when he was 17, and I couldn't believe he was 17. And I just was like shocked that he knew as much. He carried himself the way he carried, but he is the way he is because of these animals. And I don't know anything else but the animals. I feel like.
Dude, I'm so lost to the rest of the world.
Dude, my kids' birthdays are tattooed on my chest so that I have a place to look when I feel crap.
Nice.
It's your birthday.
Yeah. Take it off of the DMV.
Exactly, yeah. Fill out paperwork. When's the date of birth? Yeah.
I mean,
I only got so much room for stuff.
and with all that being said, I mean, let me ask you this, Justin. With so much going on behind, I mean, I don't know. I mean, nobody really knows what's happening behind Canova because you're that innovative. I'm just you never seem to surprise people with something you drop when it comes to a YouTube video. Like you're just always keeping people surprised, right? But at the end of the day, like, do you feel like you put too much on your plate sometimes and you need to hold back, or like do you feel like you grasp a little bit of the balance, or are you somebody that have no balance? Like, how are you managing the stuff that you do with the YouTube, Instagram, this, and the family? Like,
well, I do have a lot of help because there's no way I could get nearly as much done if I didn't have the help. That being said, I don't have a very good work-life balance. But I think that's overrated, because it's not. We're talking about work-life balance. I just want my life. Like, I want to be able to do what I want to do. And sometimes I want to work like crazy for a really long time, right? And there's only so much you can do it. But you start feeling that edge, like, well, I got to do something a little different now. But I go through periods where I just, cram, hard work for a long
back to what I was
time.
saying about some of these standards. Like, even the standards of life isn't even right. Like, who says you should fucking eat 3 times a day?
Right.
That's not necessary. That's like some ball python overproducing type shit.
Right.
I
can't imagine.
But I'm just saying, like, dude, like, just because somebody did it in the 50s and 60s or 70s doesn't mean we need to keep doing it. You gotta not be scared of change, man. And I feel like one of the biggest things that's really helped my life was definitely like getting into fitness, right? And fitness is a whole life. Like, I wish I could really be dedicated to fitness, but I love food way too much. But I understand that fitness helps you in a way that can really just change everything, the way you look. I mean, I will give kudos to this guy because as much as, and I helped you in this, but as much as this guy puts on his plate, you do find time to work out and you do find time to hit the gym.
I do.
And how does that help you, do you feel like?
I mean, I think for anybody, no matter what line of work you're in, it pulls your life together. It reinforces discipline in multiple facets. Obviously, mentally and physically, you're more acute, in tune with yourself. It's that kind of like moving meditation, kind of separating. Because for me, just like Justin said, zero work-life balance. Like it is not a thing.
Yeah, work is your life. So.
Exactly.
Work is life. Yeah. You don't know nothing
without,
else.
Yeah.
like, without the reptiles, I would be totally lost. But
I
that
agree. You actually have that in
Yeah,
common a
zero.
lot.
Yeah.
And can't agree on that.
But I think that comes in common with a lot of people who've done big things in this game. Is if you're not all in, it's not going to happen. It's such an involved process. It's something that if it's 3 a.m. and you gotta go to where your animals are, there's an issue, like you don't have a choice. You know, this becomes your entire life, which is not for everybody. And I think some people need to have that level of self-awareness. I think that also plays into the hoarding versus collecting mindset of overcommitting yourself in aspects of your life that you're not willing to sacrifice for the animals, and therefore taking a toll on them. So,
and I feel like how you know if you're meant for this is if you're okay staying up at 3, 4 in the morning and doing it and not hating your life and not blaming shit or not, having it affect your whole day to day.
I think that doesn't mean you want to do that. Yeah. It means that when the opportunity arises where you have to,
It is what it
you
is.
don't think twice about it.
Yeah, exactly.
I like what Justin said. It's work-life balance doesn't mean that you have the same amount of work as the same amount of time off. Because there's a ton of people that have work-life balance and they sit on their couch and drink beer and watch TV. Like
Right.
that's not a better thing.
Yeah.
So it's a balance. It's your mental state and balancing that. I went to bed at 6 o'clock the other morning. Finally went to bed after building this cage and getting it ready for this guy, and I had to get up at 8 o'clock because the plumbers were coming to start working on our house. And then I stayed up till 3 the next morning working. Like, I have stuff going on. I'm not exhausted. I'm not upset. I'm not depressed. I'm not being driven down by it. And when you start to get that where you're like, I'm just burning out a little bit, that's when the balance comes in of, okay, now it's time to take a long weekend with the family, go camp, go get out of the town for a bit, drive out to Pomona. That was my life. And then you balance that out. You feel happy. You come back swinging. It's not an hours for hours thing. It's how you feel.
I mean, to bring back up Will Murrows, I feel like one of the things he said on the podcast before with him and I is that, like, the whole, 100, 150 clutches, it's not something you necessarily need to do if you want to make a life out of this, especially the way how things are nowadays. And at the end of the day, it's ball python specifically, it's strategic on how you do this. And it's about working smarter, not harder. And I feel like if you're in the whole, I need to make as much money as I can in the next 3-4 years, I'll buy as many as adults. Who has this? I mean, that's just a short niche of what the real ball python game is all about. And I'm not going to talk too much about ball python, but stepping into the game right now, Justin, compared to let's say 5 years ago.
Yeah.
How much of a difference coming into the game right now compared to 2015?
Yeah, it's harder in most ways because anytime you're trying to step into an industry, it's all about market share. And when you have leaders who have a high amount of market share, you're stepping into a space where you're going to have to be competing with that. Where initially, I think that it was so diversified that it was easier. The other thing that's a lot harder now, I think, is just the decision making. I remember when I got in, there was 3 to 5 mutations, and you just bought them all. You didn't overthink it. Nowadays, people get in and it's analysis paralysis. They have no idea between all the combos and all the projects, and they have a certain amount of money. And I don't envy that at all. I think it's really, really hard to make decisions now. Stepping in. Do
you feel like a lot of decisions that you're making with these quad recessive projects are going to keep the more serious people around and the more people who are just in it for the fad and kind of fade away? I mean, nothing wrong with the $300, $400 snake game at all. Yeah. But there's so many people who believe that no one's in this to invest in $5,000 animals. I beg to differ. I'm telling you right now, that's a fucking lie. Yeah. But what I'm trying to say is, based off what you're seeing, do you feel like the higher end game is going to be the more common thing for the ball pythons versus the lower end game?
It takes a while to see how these trends shake out. I really don't know how it will shake out, but I don't think it's going to be a massive difference. I see as it matures, it looking more like the high end dog or the high end horse game, in the sense of maybe the top part of it will be a very, very small numbers wise compared to the rest. but it'll still be the two distinct areas. But it's really, really hard to say. But I think there will be a bigger gap between people who are really chasing the top and the people who there won't be quite so much of the middle long term. And I'm not sure that's a good thing, but I don't necessarily know how to shepherd that.
I feel like the biggest piece on the whole reptile industry together, like the most important piece, is the whole pricing in general. Like the whole surgery guy fucking just taking a price on the snake, skying it through the roof. Like Bolins were not meant to be $8,000, just so you know. But there are $8,000 if you're hooked up. Like on the hookup, they're $8K. But I don't know where we at. What I'm trying to say is because we have somebody, Stephen KUSH, who's going to be one of the first people ever to come out with like multiple scrub clutches every year. Like he's on his way. And maybe I'm speaking in the future, but this is how I feel. And this is a guy who can control that market in a way because no one else is putting this stuff out but him. But Stephen's somebody who takes this pricing stuff so serious. And I want to know why you take that to heart.
Because I think there's multiple aspects to something like that that create a sustainable market and a responsible, sustainable market. Demand is just going to be natural with how the market is shifting, especially when you're dealing with in this game, a species that for the longest time, wild-caught animals have been the only supply, like early days in ball pythons. But then once you start making that shift to captive bred, you need enough people on board to actually sustain that in the long run. If we're used to buying these inexpensive imported animals, taking a $500 import, $5,000 for captive bred, that market will never exist because that gap is not going to be bridged by this small market that's used to buying these inexpensive animals. If you for one promote it, show why these animals are incredible. For me, not even necessarily from the sake of there's a future for a market here. This could be an investment animal, but just purely for the fact that these are just very enjoyable captive animals. And through captive breeding, we can create a scenario where we don't need wild-caught animals anymore. We never need a wild-caught ball python again. We never need wild-caught corn snakes. And really, at the end of the day, if the end goal of all this is not to never need wild-caught anything again, I don't know what the goal is. I mean, we really shouldn't be doing this if the goal isn't to end wild collection. If you have a different opinion, let me know.
So what, you want to know something really crazy though?
Go for it.
The ball python industry has inadvertently caused the number of collected wild ball pythons imported to the U.S. to go up substantially. Because as now, how many, like say 10 years ago, how many hets and weird like normals did you produce? Plenty.
Yeah.
How many do you produce now?
Yeah. None.
Almost none. You used to be able to come here and have a bucket of $5 normal het albinos, and stores would just buy them up.
I've been now for 3 years and I don't have to.
Now there's no more normals because everything has 2, 3 genes, supers, all that stuff. They're not producing as many normals, so there's no normals for the pet industry. So they started importing them again, and now $50 normals are coming in by the hundreds.
I would say you really can't compare.
I also don't think that's a good or bad thing. I don't think it depends. It depends on where it is and how it's done. If it's sustainable, like studied sustainable collection, I don't have a problem with it. Just like hunting, if it's sustainable and it's regulated and they pay attention and it's not corrupt, then yeah.
But I don't think you can compare that situation to any other species in the pet trade.
Right, that one specifically. No, I totally agree.
I think ball pythons stand alone from literally everything else we do. They are the baseline. They are the center of all of this. But I think that is not necessarily a reason to not build a strong infrastructure surrounding those ball pythons as well, which I think will in turn benefit wild populations of many species and also the ball pythons, because to me, at least personally, I think some of the longevity has come from changing in interests. I've always had ball pythons. I feel like I always will, but but it's like, I think anybody who gets burned out with something you get bogged down in it.
You showed me, remember a year ago, you showed me a note. You had notes from was it 8th or 7th grade about your ball pythons.
Yeah.
How could you ever get rid of ball pythons when you were at that level with them? Like taking notes? I wish I was at
Oh,
that
sure.
level.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying that, but I'm also
I'm just
saying
glad
that
you're keeping them.
having an open mind through the process have been opened up to so many incredible experiences that never would have happened otherwise if I put the blinders on and stuck with the ball pythons. And truly, I don't know if I would still be doing this today. Would I have burned out by my laser focus? And I think people who get into ball pythons drop lots of money and are sold out within a year to 5. Maybe they would have had that longevity if their mindset was more expanded beyond, okay, this is what the numbers are on paper, this is what I'm going to do with these animals, to I'm in this for the enjoyment of captive reptiles and husbandry of these captive reptiles. Let's explore that as a whole and in turn support the main focus of what I'm trying to do.
I think part of what's caused that of people to like jump into it, go really big, and then jump out. And this is something I would love to see more of, and this would be anybody that uses social media, YouTube, whatever, readers, everything. I'd love to see a differentiation between describing what you do as an industry breeder, you're effectively an industrial breeding facility. That how you do things, the way that it's all in order to make it more efficient, so that you can produce the amount of pets we all need in order to have them. That makes sense. But does that make sense for somebody who has 5 snakes to get a 5-tub rack and stick them all in it? Not really, because those people aren't as dedicated. They're not going to every drawer. They don't understand the background. They haven't built that background.
Or want to care to even.
And they don't even know that that's coming. Like they see the end goal without the path, and then they try to jump there and they fall short, and then they bail. And that's where like Disney. I tell everybody, we used to have the Disney effect, what we called it when we did the rescue. If you came into my house to adopt an animal from the rescue, a whole front room had my croc enclosures all decked out, planted dart fog tanks. You could see to the back room, big monitor enclosures and stuff. And then in the rescue, they were animals that had health issues. They were in drawers so that they were healthy and less stressed. But a mom that drops off her snake's not going to understand why I just stuck it in a drawer. So we didn't show them that. They saw the outside, the big, beautiful
It's
enclosure.
easy to lose perspective, isn't it, on how the public interprets what they see.
Right.
And then you're talking about some of the YouTubers and some of the medical procedures and all that. I often wonder, how deep am I in that when I do something, I completely have lost track of how a regular person views that exact same action.
Yep.
Right? And when they see you cutting on something or talking about, this snake was born with a huge kink or whatever, it's like there's like a revulsion to that. I don't understand that, and even if you explain it, they need to fall in love with healthy reptiles first.
Right.
Ideally, right?
I have something that might give you a little curveball on this, okay? Because I'm not saying I've sold thousands of ball pythons, but I've sold slightly over 100.
Okay. Good job.
Okay? But what I'm saying is, out of slightly this over 100 ball pythons I sold, I have one. I don't want to call her headache. Shout out to Anastasia. Keeps studying in school. She's a little girl and she's killing it. Little Anastasia got this ball python in a tank. Got it in an aquarium. We got these going, and she had problems getting it to eat. Everyone else put it in a rack, and it eats really good. The problem I feel like is, as much as you would love to see something thriving in a bioactive or just in a simple enclosure that you can see through, all pythons don't always do good in things that you can look at. Like, they don't want to be looked at sometimes. Like
They're all different too.
No animal does. No reptile wants to be on display.
You're right,
And that's a big
I
part
don't
of
think
it, too.
anyone want to be looked at.
At the end of the day, the way I see it is that comes down to putting the needs of your animals before the needs of you to feel like you know what you're doing.
I think it comes down to the industry as a whole completely screwing up our hobby by trying to make it so everything is easy. Anyone can keep a reptile. It's easy. It's simple. Here's your complete starter kit. You don't need anything more than this. So they've tricked everyone entering into the hobby to thinking that they have everything they need to know there.
Sure.
I tell this to people. I realized this last year. If you go to get dog food at Petco, my wife tells me, our dog's allergic to this protein. Want it to have this in it. Go find something that fits that. I find 3 of them. I look at them and I Amazon quick. I'm not sure none of them killed anything or recalls or whatever. And I pick the middle price one and I go home. I don't do 3 months of research and become a dog nutritionist.
Right.
Because I feel when I go into a store that they've done that brand has put in the money to do that. So you trust it. When you go down the reptile aisle, it's the exact same thing. complete bearded dragon kit, complete setup, all you need right here. Just put in the animal. There's nothing in that sparks that person to go, you know what? I need to know more. In fact, it's the opposite.
Put your animals out of a freedom breeder rack. I can tell you that because it's going to do well.
Right?
Not the Jesse. One of the perks about having a podcast in front of Banana Bar is you see people like this walking by. Jesse, thank you so much. I want to say, being in somebody's facility like that and seeing nothing but freedom breeder racks all the way down, I am so heavily motivated to make that happen. So, for sure, I appreciate you so much. Just want to say thank you so much for everything you do. Jesse, freedom breeder baby in the building. Thank you, man. I appreciate you.
Let you guys get to it.
Yeah, thank you. That only happens at NARBC Tinley.
Only.
Yeah.
Anyways, I don't know. Like at the end of the day, like I took time, literally, like and here's the thing. I always hope you take time with your customer to help them with an animal you produced.
Yeah.
And meaning like, as much as I feel like, I feel like this could happen more often where people could hit me up helping me or asking for help with their animal. But I ask everybody, whoever asks me, like, hey, my animal won't eat. What do you have here? And whenever there's a problem with an animal not eating, it's in an aquarium or a tank. And I just want to know for the first pet owner, how can we skip that? Or like, how do we get to a point where
think about it like this. If you have a dog and that dog isn't eating its food, that's the food that you were told to feed it. Are you just going to keep feeding the dog the food it won't eat?
There's allergies. No, you're not going to do that.
Well, no, but any dog owner is like, okay, I should switch up the food.
Okay, pedigree, not really good for your dog. Pedigree, depends if it's a mutt. No disrespect to the mutts. But if my dog eats pedigree, it breaks out, and there's really bad things that happen.
Dude, pitties have horrible allergies.
Yes,
every
big
time.
But that's,
so like with your snake, if you have a situation where the snake is not eating, I just feel like whatever the introduction for a new person to reptiles is, along with that introduction should come some critical thinking. Promote critical thinking. Hey, this doesn't seem right. You would know what's not right with your dog, with your cat, with your child. I hope so. But with the reptile, that's why I said I hope so. With the reptile, I feel like that mindset isn't quite as preached or upfront. This is how you have to do it. Do it steps 1 through 4, whether you hear it from a pet store telling you one way, someone on YouTube telling you another way. I think at the end of the day, if critical thinking is promoted in it, your animal is in a cage, it's not eating.
Have you seen social media?
It's a
Where are
society-wide
we
problem.
pushing critical thinking from? Like, I agree, dude. I wish
or
people
even a lot of
thought our
keepers that are
critical-
actually been keeping
This
for a
is
long
your
time.
department.
They've
Yeah, I wish people
very
thought
little.
more
I'm talking about the ideal world we could live in.
Yeah,
but,
I know. Dude, I wish people would think more
If
critically. But
if
like,
more
look at
people could see this.
you know how many people come up to me and they're like, dude, my snake I got a light on it and my ball python's only it's at 95 degrees. How do I get it back down between 88 and 92? And I'm like, why? Well, not even that, why? And they're like, well, because it has to be between 88 and 92. And I'm like, okay, so show me one place on Earth that is always between 88 and 92. Like, we need to all remember that, like, these things evolved for millions of years before we were here.
Remember, they came from
sensors in their face.
They came from the wild, a very uncontrolled situation.
Yeah.
Right?
And they're still very close to the wild compared to most of our pets, too.
Oh, absolutely. So,
Yeah.
there's so much husbandry that if you just go, how does that relate to how they live in the wild? You go, it totally doesn't.
Right, you're going to understand this. So are you. Hopefully one day.
I want to understand.
But you want to really respect husbandry? Get a monitor. Especially get a pair. Especially, let's say get a project with monitors. Because there's so much importance behind that nest boxing. Like, monitors have to be happy with their life if you want things to work out.
Yeah.
And, dude, I'm thriving about your VidTech bulbs. I'm thriving about my new nest box. The fact that I found out that you have to put heat on the side of the nest box for them to know which way to dig at. I never knew that. Like, my green tree monitors almost went 8-bound because I did not have my nest box dialed in. But now I'm such a geek about husbandry because of monitors. I feel like if you're really about your shit, get a monitor, Justin.
I have a monitor, a black dragon.
That's not a monitor. That's a retic. That's a lizard. I'm just kidding. No, that is honestly.
There's just one though, and there's lots to learn. But yeah, I got it from Nerd.
Who?
Nerd.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Byron. No, and
No.
but how's I want to go. I completely skipped all the remembrance of you having a black dragon.
Yeah.
When did you get this?
It's been almost a year I've had it.
Wow.
It's done really well.
Male or female?
It's supposedly a female.
Is it? I mean, how big is it?
I don't know. She had 24 inches on. She's with the tail, yeah, bigger.
So
So
probably a female, you would think, right? Because a male
it's
would
hard
be.
to say.
It really depends. It really depends on feeding and everything.
We don't feed it super hard.
Yeah.
We're still learning. We enjoy it. No, but I want to tell this quick story. This goes to our topic about being able to step back and looking at them through other people's eyes. I was in Tybee Island, which is in South Carolina, just a few weeks ago with my school group. So all my kids are there. We went into this wildlife center, and then she's showing us all these local snakes, rat snakes, and everything. And she walks up to me, and she hands me a ball python. And the lady, she said, "This is a ball python," and she handed it to me. And I took it in my hands in that moment. It's like a month ago, and I thought, "This is a ball python." I for some reason, I was seeing it for the very first time. Literally, I've done nothing but ball pythons forever, but it was just a regular ball python, and for some I had this out of body
Like it was
experience.
your first time seeing it.
No one's ever told me that. I can't remember last time someone said, "This is a ball python, hand me a snake."
It's
Yeah.
almost like someone asked you to do a podcast. We're not going to talk about your project.
Yeah,
Yes.
right.
Woo!
Yeah, and I looked at it this is a beautiful animal, and somehow it was completely separate from everything I'd ever done. It was just a beautiful animal, and I was like, I get you. It was an amazing experience. It was a weird experience. I obviously didn't tell them anything about what I did.
You
Or
had some
anything.
weird mushrooms on your burger that day. Huh?
Yeah, exactly.
Really, tell me more.
It was super odd, and but it was in a moment I was just one of those kids experiencing it for the first time, and I was like, wow, I'm so far down the rabbit hole. We need to take a step back and see these animals the way other people see them, and educate people from that position. No, it's not poisonous. Let's start there. And versus start at this high level all the time.
You know what
It's
the best
interesting.
way to do that is? Join your local herp society.
Really?
Dead serious. I started the Madison Area Herp Society in 2010. The best stories of my entire keeping life are from going out and
Really?
educating people.
Why don't you start your own chapters? Because not every herb society is great.
I know, because I don't, dude.
San Diego's
I
weird,
sleep
bro.
2 hours a week, and
You're
that's
up
my
San Diego's
my
weird.
2 hours.
One guy got busted in Tijuana.
Yeah, I
He's
know.
a part of that herb society.
I get it.
That's
They're not all great. I know. Everybody
Listen,
should look into the Madison Area Herp Society, which is one of the only
Yes,
growing
dude,
ones in the
yes.
United States.
Madison Herb Society.
Yeah, but
Shout out to Bill Stewart.
but no, that's the thing. So many experiences getting out. I had a super elderly man that was on his deathbed at the end of his life, was at a show, and he had this bucket list to touch a snake, and I got to do that with him, and it was
Wow.
so cool. I had a kid that was autistic come up and ask me a question at a school event, and all the teachers started crying, and later they told me that was the first time he talked in 2 years.
Oh, I love that.
That kind of stuff, dude. There's stuff like that. I can tell you
That's
10
so
dozen
cool.
more stories like that just light me up. And that's honestly, I think that's a big part of what's allowed me to look at the products and stuff.
I feel like
Because I talk to these kids and these entry level
your
people
own
so
daughters,
much.
even your own, you shared your story about your own kids,
Yeah.
and it's changed you as a person.
Yeah,
Which
That's a gift, though, to be able to get those perspectives like that. Sometimes.
yeah.
That's
Bug
amazing.
Justine and go out on some of the outings and stuff. And
Yeah.
Georgia Reptile, yeah, go do. It's so fun, especially when you get somebody that's afraid or some kid that's unsure, and then they're hanging out and they get all excited and they're asking the funniest questions. It lights you up. You can ask Bill. He came into my office once and he's like, I'm so tired. I can't do this show today. Can you please do it for me? And I'm like, you signed up. I didn't take off. I can't do it. You're going or you're fired. You have to do it. And I'm like, when you go, you're going to get energized afterwards. You never want to do it, but then you go and you're fired up. Came back 2 hours later. He's like, you were right. I'm going to go get to work. I'm all fired up again. Because these kids and these questions and just getting somebody else excited about something that you're that excited about just radiates it back right at you.
Yeah, I mean, let me ask you this, Justin. As much as people feed off your excitement that you provide, do you feel like you don't focus enough on, like you said, the normal ball python? Even to this day, do you feel like you're more focused on not making people happy, but just remembering what a normal could do to you? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's easy to lose that perspective, and that's when that moment I kind of got it back, and I saw my young self in a way in a moment for there, and it's interesting. It's hard. You know, we all have our roles. You know, my role may not be to breed normals, but I don't want to lose that perspective, and I definitely want to develop in people the right way of looking at these animals. So, yeah.
Thanks, Dave.
Should we make this weird?
I think we're pretty weird already.
No, we're getting a little too weird. I think we're on a good track.
We're talking about normals. That's the most abnormal thing.
Yeah, no
I've ever
kidding.
over here.
Honestly,
It's like there's a
Round.
lot of recessive Southern genes there.
So before I forget about this topic, I do want to ask you, Justin. You know, you have a huge Patreon page full of people inspired to be a part of exclusive content, but I'm sure you have a certain tier where you talk to people more of a personal level. And I don't know, how many times do people approach you with an idea and you're just like holy shit, guy, like no.
Most of that happens on Instagram.
Social media is the sewer of the
What I'm
world.
talking about, like, no, I'm talking out of experience. Like, I got people
Yeah.
paying me for my time, and they're coming in with ideas that just do not line up. And I'm very blunt, and I don't want to lose their support, but I also don't feel like they're doing it right. So how are you managing being realistic with the people, even though they're paying you and they're giving you many reach arounds?
Yeah.
They want your advice.
Well, first of all, I do not offer one-on-one advice for my Patreon at all.
Respect.
We just don't do that. And I just say, listen, this is a group thing. I'm going to give the best information I have, but I'm not. If we had to do it one-on-one, we have to have a very, very small group. I just don't have that kind of time. But on Instagram, we do have lots of people who ask really, really dumb questions, you know, or really, really bad ideas, really bad pairings, whatever. You know what? I think my biggest goal is I don't want to extinguish the fire of whatever passion they have. And I think, especially when they're approaching me, I think they have these expectations of me. And I don't know. I know what it was like to approach Ralph Davis and some of these guys back in the day, and he's scared to death that they just like shoot
Did
me
you have a
down or
camera and ask
whatever.
for questions and wasn't recording and wasted 20 minutes?
Yeah, stuff like that. Yeah.
Fuck. My Ralph Davis rant.
But I try. My goal is to gently lead them the right way without like extinguishing their dream. You know, whatever it is that they're trying to do. Like, yeah, like I've not tried that pairing. I'm not sure it's the best fit, but you know, I'm really curious to find out what you make from that if you do it, that sort of thing. And yeah, it's tough.
Be
You know?
polite, but try and move them in the right way. You're never gonna get anywhere going, you idiot.
Well, hold
Right.
on. Some people, yes. I mean,
Is that what you do?
I mean, no, but I have people that will tell me like that when I need it. Like,
Really?
I'm
But
trying
if
to
you're
think
somebody that can handle that.
right. I'm building the
It's got- I do it for my friends.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
that's a personal kind of thing.
Yeah.
Right. Personally, I get it.
Yeah.
But what I want to ask all three of you at this point is, when you comes to association, you guys are very careful with who you associate yourself with. Steven, yourself, especially you, Justin. At some point, how do you separate from somebody, even though the up and coming has been neck and neck, right? But there's blatantly practices that are not changing. There's practices that you'd rather not be associated with. But at what point do you separate or just stay with it? And I'm not saying that any of you are in that position, but I'm just saying, like, let's just say for instance, let's just say for an example, I'm like, these podcasts aren't doing it for me. But you know what does it for me? Live feeding videos. I'm dead serious. What if I turn this shit into a live feeding video content thing? How hard would it be to support something like that? And let me give you an example.
I would absolutely give you
I'm
a
talking
very
about-
fast
I'm
lead
ta-
object.
I'm talking about commentary, like, guys, look at this. The rat's dying right now. Like, pretty bad, dark, weird commentary. At what point would you tell me, like, MJ, here's the deal. You're done. Or and I'm just using this as an example. I don't know anybody doing that. But I'm just saying.
I've been there before.
I'm using an example, like, how do you politely disassociate yourself from something like that or disconnect?
My answer is to never be that connected to start with.
Woo! That was hot.
I mean, that's really
That's so
that's the
hot.
lesson I've learned over 20 years now in this industry is that my good friends need to be outside the industry because we have this one thing in common, but in the end, a lot of us are competing, and they're just a lot. You really don't know people that well, and so
And that's the thing that
I keep it professional.
This is why I preach about going to shows so you can actually meet somebody and not believe in this relationship. Which I mean, I get it. I mean, I built relationships with all these guys on social media, but what really connected it was coming in person. But don't base everything off of phone relationships.
Not even that. Don't even do it off of this relationship.
We're being catfished
No,
right now.
Here's the deal.
What?
No, hold on.
I thought we were boys.
We are. But here, you've been in my house. You know my kids' names. You know my dogs.
Boogie.
You know.
I love them all.
You
Boogie.
know me. Dean and Steven have known each other forever. I don't actually even know if you've been in the house yet.
I have
some. Yeah, you have.
Briefly.
But like we're close and we know each other really well. But even people I see on a almost monthly basis that I'm good friends with and hang out with at shows. I've never been to their house. I don't know their parents. I don't know their family. I mean, and on top of that, like, I don't know if they're murdering and stuffing children in their basement. Like, I don't know any of that. Like, you're superficially friends, and social media gives us this feeling of it being a bigger thing. Now, most of my close friends are from the industry, but not from the breeder perspective. It's more of the Herp Society and education and the community that gets built there. And I think in that regard, you attract a lot of different people where you're close for different reasons. It's not just the animals; it's a bigger passion, a bigger thing. And then we're never competing each other too, because I've absolutely seen that. Or if people who are selling to the next guy, the up and comer, the mentee, and then they start trashing him once he's big enough to start competing with them. That kind of crazy stuff.
Talk about competition just fucking everything up in general, which I feel like competition's never been a part of Canova in general.
I'm very competitive.
With yourself, I feel like. But like you're not, I mean, you look at someone's account and be like, God damn it, it could have been me.
No, okay, so no, I'm competitive in the sense that I want to be
number one.
Yeah, and I want to beat everybody to everything that I can. That doesn't mean that I begrudge other people who do that, because I see in them what I have, and I respect it. You know, if somebody beats me to something that I really wanted to do, I'm like, I got to get back in there to work, you know? And I'm proud of them. I'm happy for them. I don't feel that jealousy side of it. But that's something that comes from a long time too, because it's been a process. But it inspires me to work harder, or keep working harder.
And it could inspire you to work on that harder again, or give you that looks awful fear. Thanks for doing that.
That's to show everybody what bad combos are too.
Yeah, you can't always not.
Right. You know? But I feel like the competition is a lot like people who are in your category, and I don't know if no one's really in Justin's category, but I'm just saying, like, people who are kind of been doing what you've been doing and making stuff as far as remotely relevant to what you're making looks at those competition, and it aggravates them.
Yeah.
And I can tell you because I told them I have a podcast with Justin, and I read their face. I know, and they go, my head day, podcast with Justin. What? That guy's amazing. What the fuck's your problem? But at the end of the day, I see why. You are sitting on something that you built on your own, and it must be nice. It must be nice. But it's something you work for. What the fuck are you going to do?
It's a lot of pressure, too. I feel a lot of pressure.
A lot of pressure.
You know, to continue. I felt very little pressure for most of the year that I was doing this. Once you get to a certain level, though, you feel like there's this expectation that you don't hit it. You don't follow up year after year. You feel like you're losing versus, so it's a lot. But
yeah. So, I mean, if we can kind of revert back to, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, I talk about this all the time. The biggest thing. I mean, we can think everything as far as notability, popularity, what's being put out there. The most the ball python community is carrying a lot of this for the reptile community, right?
Yeah, happy to do it. Yeah.
But how can we make it more of just a rack against the wall? Let's put some snakes in there type of hobby, like. And I'm meaning like, and I'm going back to where I'm saying, like, I know my ball pythons are happier being in a dark, controlled space. But at the end of the day, lighting has some sort of effect even for a ball python. So has there been any kind of a thought yet on how, maybe collabing with Facebook, collabing with a freedom breeder or a rack company on like putting your UVB on it?
I would love to see that.
I'm way ahead of you.
Yeah, tell me more. Like how's that going to work?
I'm working on a couple different variations for the UV with LED. I won't get into all of it, but I'm looking at lighting that can project UV 8 feet and covers a lot more of the sun spectrum than any other bulb. For zoos and huge enclosures, I'm looking at strip lighting that has built-in gradients and is all Wi-Fi and has sun up and sun down and things in it. And then I want to look at a small tape type, small insulated aluminum, quarter-inch thick stuff that we can be mounted in racks and things like that. But I can only do a little bit at a time because our team is 3 people and I'm the R&D. So,
wait, regional manager of destruction?
I'll go with it. I'll go with that. That sounds good.
Wait, what does R&D stand for?
Research and development.
I feel like you're more than that because Elon Musk says your titles don't mean shit.
Yeah, I do a ton of stuff, but like,
No, you do a lot.
Well, everything, but no, it's I don't know. No.
Well,
I want to see a better ball python cage
Yeah.
for the masses. I think it'd only help our industry. It certainly wouldn't hurt in any way if we had a good ball python display that was the animal was super happy. That's what we all want.
Well, and the other thing too is like it sucks, and I'm sorry to crush your ideas here, but ball pythons don't spend all of their time in turning the tiny little holes in termite mounds, and they don't live in dark little holes. Now, granted, I'm not opposed to breeding in racks.
were you in Africa? Did you see this?
I sent Mike Clarkson there in person and got all the video and photographs and.
So there's documentation of this proof
Yeah.
of what's making you look stupid.
I'm just saying. Actually, to be totally honest, the idea that they like to live in tiny little cramped spaces and that's how they live has a lot to do with the rack manufacturers' competition as they develop everything.
So let me ask you this. I'm just thinking theoretically, sitting next to one of the biggest, if not the biggest ball python guy in the game, could there be a collaboration that you guys could work out?
At some point, hell yeah, because I'm not ready with a product to fix that. That's the right thing. I don't hate people who use racks. That's stupid. Like, that is the best way to create an industrial breeding facility that's clean. You can do quarantine. You can have that's healthy animals. It's more controlled. It makes sense for that. For him to go and do a bunch of planted enclosures would be stupid, a waste of money and time, wouldn't be better for the animals. And because in that situation, that's not going to be beneficial for them.
So in a perfect environment in a ball python, for something that you would design would be what? Like if money didn't
I'm
matter,
already working on it, so I can't tell you because there's
Oh,
patent
Ryan
stuff.
McVeigh.
What I'll tell you is they do need a place to hide. They need a den. But look at let's let's say your buddy's kid comes over and says, I want a leopard gecko. So they come to you because everybody's reptile guy, So you do a 20-gallon tank and you go, we're gonna build this out to look like the damn side of a hill in Afghanistan. You're build all these rocks. You're gonna put a water and a food bowl over here, and you're gonna put a human hide over here, and then it could look amazing. The fundamentals of that are still completely screwed from the get-go because where do they spend 95% of their time? In the spot that you control, you have the least control of the environment other than wet and less wet. And then the whole rest of the environment that they use and you control, they spend 5% of their time in. That's like building your house to all be a bathroom, but the one room in the back is your closet, kitchen, dining room, bedroom.
But I mean, if we could really be like realistic here, the biggest push in the ball python game, as of what I can see, is people wanting to take this to a business level.
Yeah.
So
that's
like,
awesome.
so what I'm thinking is like, how can we, like, for instance, like, how can I have something where I have just over 100 ball pythons, but they're all being provided the UV light they have, the water, the den, whatever the fuck they need. How can we make this more suitable for the more common breeder like myself?
It's going to be a lot of innovation from companies to try and come up with the products to
But it's
do that.
doable. You feel like.
It's totally
And
doable.
you feel like that's the future of the game?
I'm working on stuff that's going to make that happen in the next 2 years.
Am I getting too excited?
No, totally should be excited about it. But
Yeah,
that's the thing. That's why I'm not mad that Justin sucks because he keeps the snakes in racks. Why would I be mad? You don't have UV on them. Well, guess what? There's no way to do that in a manageable way whatsoever.
Yes.
Right. Well, and if you want to pay $700 for the normal that the pastel that he ends up with because he puts UV on all of his snakes, doesn't make sense. And I don't want people to do that. Like, it does affect them a lot, and it sucks. But at the same time, it's like the food industry, like the cattle industry and stuff. We make concessions on some things, and we do as best we can to keep animal life and happiness as best as we can, while still being able to provide that service or that product. And if you don't do that, that's fine. But then you're getting open, grass-fed, free-range, $70 a pound meat. And are people going to pay for that? Maybe, maybe not.
Standards in life. How long has organic vegetables and meat been around? No, how long? It's like since the 80s?
Yeah.
Because I've never had organic or anything until I met my wife.
Well, technically,
And it's changed
organic
me.
is literally everything that grows outside before we have pesticides.
My grasshoppers.
Nature was not invented until the
Yeah,
80s.
nature's pretty organic.
So that's why if you don't go organic with your grasshoppers, they're gonna die. Did you not know that?
I did not know that.
So I'm not gonna tell you
Pesticides,
grasshoppers
man.
until you got that taken care of. You know what I'm saying? Because even grasshoppers, right? Like, shout out to my boy Kai, by the way. Grasshoppers, such a nutrient for any monitor because you have to chase it, you gotta grab it, but it's like more active than just a monitor perched up and here's a fat ass rat. Eat another rat, fat ass. This is not how it works. And shout out to Brandon Van Asten because Brandon Van Asten was the one to teach me that green tree monitors shouldn't eat rodents, period. They're all about insects. And they did some research where I think they pulled 49 green tree monitors from the wild, and like 48 of them had nothing but insects in them. One had like a piece of a bird in them or something like that. But the primary diet is insects. It's not rodents.
You know why everybody thinks it's rodents for everything?
Because it's easy to eat.
Because that's the only feed source we have, and no one has been to the places they come from. Indonesia has way more frogs, lizards, birds than they do rodents running around.
Sure.
So those animals don't eat a lot of rodents. They don't eat fatty foods. They don't eat a ton of, they don't eat a ton of that. They eat super lean, really super lean foods, and then in captivity, that's why we end up with obese animals. But
Interesting.
well, no, there's other stuff with the foods, like and again, I don't fault anybody for this. It's what the standard has always been. But look at how we produce rodents. We do it the same way labs do it. The end goal of a lab's rodent isn't to be a nutritional food source for an animal. It's to reproduce exactly and create lots of other ones to reproduce exactly. There's tons of sugars and molasses and fillers in that food, and it does a great job to make them all equal and all the same, but it's not creating a nutritional feeder. So, and none of the manufacturers of foods are looking at creating a nutritional feeder when it comes to rodents. But like if you look at Timberline, their Vitabugs, they did a ton of research on how if you feed those insects a better diet, a higher vitamin diet, they retain those vitamins in their musculature, their tissues of their body, and nutritionally they become a better food because they build all that up in their body versus just eating potatoes their whole life.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot to it.
Yeah,
I think that's the lesson we can all improve a lot.
Right, absolutely.
We got to be open to that, to learning and be better.
Yeah, and that's where I think the biggest thing is, and I see it a lot in the younger generation coming in. It's really exciting. I'll get people who will come by and be like, "Man, well, doesn't need UV, whatever. I don't care." And that's whatever. That's great. That is good for you, dude. But then I get these newer people that are getting into it I sold more UV bulbs for ball pythons in the last 8 months than I did my entire 20-year career. Like working in stores, everything. Because people they're learning, they're listening, they want that extra stuff. And the research on UV for animals started in the 1940s. Like we've just ignored it because it's cheaper to ignore it.
To the standards. It's easier to do once a week water changes, isn't it? It is.
It's easier for us,
especially
not
when you
easier
have
for your
200,
animal.
300 animals. But I just want to say, a lot of people are cool with it because it is hard, I bet, especially if you're by yourself. If you don't have a team and you're Mr. fucking 200, 300 clutches a year, if you're by yourself, how are you doing that and managing all these animals the way you should? I don't think you are. And here's the thing about social media. The only people getting policed or getting judged are people who are on social media. You know how many people who are not on social media?
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't mean whatever's on social media, everything's out there. No, that just means there's fucking people who are catching on and who want to be putting it out there. But there's so many hillbillies out there who just don't give a shit.
Work with your local.
Work with your local hillbillies.
Like, no, we work with animal control. There was a guy sleeping in a shed with wooden boxes that had copperheads and diamondbacks on them.
Oh, what a life.
Yeah, it was super cool.
Maybe come over for dinner.
But that totally exists.
All right, so listen, I have a wrap-up question. By the way, thank you so much for spending this hour and a half with me at this moment here at Tinley. First Tinley in March. First Tinley, March Tinley, 2 years. You know what I'm saying. Whatever, Justin. But wrap-up question, and I'm going to go around the table on this one, okay? In your eyes, Justin, as far as any new person coming into the hobby, what's the importance behind anything you feel like? No matter what you're getting into, I mean, you have different species, obviously lizards, right? What's the importance for anyone listening out there wanting to get into anything before they get into it? What do you feel like that is?
I mean, I think everybody's gonna have their own path into it, but I think the number one thing is just to enjoy the animals and don't consider it to be something that you have to collect or you have to match what someone else has or anything. You know, I think you have to have an enjoyment of the animals and making sure they live a good life. You know, which might be the UVB, UV light. I don't know. I say that just because that's how I got in. I got in just with the enjoyment of the animal, go out and catching them and everything. And it's got to be genuine. You see a lot of people who are attracted to the fact that it's exotic. I feel like that might steer them aside, or there's money involved, and that might steer them the wrong way. And
I want you to go last, Stephen.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard not to just echo that sentiment. Getting into this, putting the needs of the animals above your own needs. Be willing to be wrong, be willing to learn, be willing to make mistakes and grow from them, instead of making a mistake, being so egotistical that you're not even willing to acknowledge it was a mistake in the first place. I think a lot of the mindset that should be taken into keeping a reptile, keeping any pet, really almost doing anything in life, I think, it goes beyond what we do with animals. And obviously, our podcast here isn't going to change the mindsets of everybody in the world. But, the more we talk about this, the more the message gets out, the more people hear it. And then, if people see people who they look up to in this game having this kind of mindset and, purpose behind their work, that then could drive them to emulate it. For me, coming up in reptiles, I was seeing a lot of, mass production facilities in like the late 2000s into the early 2010s. That was glorified, having 5 figures of animals in a facility, just like that was what was glorified to me based on what I was seeing, the content that was put in front of me. And I think the mindset is starting to change to higher quality, lower numbers, better care of the animals, which is what we need to do. But we got to keep that momentum rolling. And I think if we do that as a whole, as a community, weed out, call out the bad apples in the process, I think we're on the right path. I think there's an incredibly bright future for what we're doing.
I like to call it the bad apples part. I like that part.
Rotten, old, sitting out in the sun,
The moldy ones, the ones with worms, they smell. I'm sorry. They do.
They got mites on them and stuff.
We don't have time for that shit.
But, I think we have our obstacles we're facing. We have animal rights. We have legislations that are being, attempted to be passed. I think as a community, it's about unity, and as an individual, it's about mindset. And at the end of the day, just true care and love for these animals that you are choosing to make a part of your life. So it's your responsibility to make that life the best for them.
Ryan?
Yeah. All right. There's 2 stories I want to tell on how I think about that. So one thing is, so you talk about when you were a kid and you catch animals, right? Like I go catch a salamander or a toad or something, and then if you decided you wanted to keep it for a little bit, what did you do?
You put it in a jar and poke holes in the top.
Yeah, and you put like dirt in there that you found, you put grass in there, you put a stick from where you found, and you made what you saw right in front of you, and then you realize that animal lives there, I need to recreate that in this.
Right.
And then now we're like, no, you just do this and it's easier and quicker, and we don't think about how those animals actually live. And I think that as we get older, we overanalyze, and we got away from looking at how they live and looking through their eyes and how they live their life and the things that affect them and the way their habitat and microclimates and microhabitats all work. And now we just go, I read one page and it said I just do this, and you slap it together and go. So like that's one thing to think about, I think. And then what you said, passion. So years ago, I got to a point where I had a couple hundred animals. I was breeding rodents, and most of mine were geckos. So it was everyday care all the time. And then I had 2 kids, and my wife was ex-wife now, but wife was pregnant, and we had twins. So I had 4 kids under 4. I didn't have time anymore, and I was stressing out because it was a job. It wasn't a passion anymore. It was like I had to go down there and take care of my head. It's just stressful when I wanted to sleep and I couldn't, and I was burnt out from everything else. And I had a moment of clarity where I thought, you know what? If everything I kept was worth nothing, and this was back in the 80s where I'd call you and say, dude, I bred Burmese pythons. And you'd be like, cool, I hatched a ball python, and we'd trade because that was cool and they had no value. It was just something neat that you did. So I thought, what if everything I had had no monetary value at all, and anything I had I kept because I loved it, and I just gave the babies to people I cared about? What would I keep?
That's
And
perfect.
that
You do.
changed everything I keep, my passion, how I feel about it. And then the other thing I've done to just kind of keep it fresh and also keep it different, and I tell people this too, is pick a couple species that are outside your main thing. Like
Teamwork.
yeah, like if you're gonna do your ball python facility, and then take like this rack is dedicated to this weirdo colubrid that you think is cool,
Right.
that nobody else is working with, and you might be the person that keeps that. Conservation through conservation through captive population is not really totally true on how it works. The conservation isn't wildlife conservation. It's conservation of the diversity of species we have access to in the hobby. And if we don't pay attention to that and everybody focuses on mainstream, then one day you wake up and you go, dude, I'd really love to have a Macklot's python, and you can't find them.
I mean, let me ask you this, Justin: do you think sometimes to stay away from the mainstream light? Because I really feel like you're pretty good at being on your own kind of like way to put things out. But I mean, I feel like you could essentially sell out if you wanted to at some point. Like you might. Did you ever get a point where you could have done like something that's not a part of the Canova game plan? Like maybe it's something as extra as like a channel to be more like, you know, I don't know, more than what it is now. Does that make sense?
You mean like getting the green tree?
Right. Sure.
Yeah. I mean, I think as of a few years ago, I started kind of looking for some other species that I always wanted as a kid and to kind of reinvigorate that part of myself. And it really changed how I felt about it. Honestly, it was a what do you call them? Satanic leaf tail. I really like.
Oh, yeah.
That thing is so exotic.
You can't not stare at that.
Right.
Like, they're unreal.
When I got that again, suddenly I was like, oh, this reignited my passion for reptiles. And it helped with the ball pythons. I got reinvigorated those too and everything. I mean, it's easy after a while, I think, to look at it just as a business, but I don't know. I don't want to ever get to that point. Again, I want to keep having that moment where you look at the ball python. This is the ball python.
Absolutely.
Keep having that moment over and over again, and remember what you're doing it for.
Yeah, it's like herping and stuff. I realized one day people were. I was herping with the Herp Society, and one of the guys found a garter snake and he grabbed it and just kind of tossed it aside because that was the 18th bazillion one we found that day, right? But I stopped him. I'm like, dude, we got kids with us.
Yeah.
Remember what that was like. Or like, look at painted turtles. They're everywhere. If you take it out of context that it's such a common turtle, they're common as dirt. They're one of the most pretty turtles on the planet, and we just totally take it for granted.
It's funny you say that, and you could easily be caught into like for instance, like, you know, dude, green tree python people are snobs for a reason, because the more you get into it, the more you spend money, the more you look at it like a imported biac, like you know what I mean? And you're just like what, that's import. I don't give a fuck. Like it's not counterfeit. But at the end of the day, it's something coming in. It's something that you don't know what it could put. Like there's so much excitement that you can still be excited about versus just pushing it to the left and just saying fuck it. You know what I mean? Which, by the way, Steven, I will say I'm so glad that you still have yet not sold any of your first scrub python clutch besides to me. Thank you so much. But you know, at the end of the day, so Steven has taken over some crazy responsibilities with the scrub python game, to where like it would almost make sense where he could have easily sold some of that production, but you're holding on to that for a reason, and I feel like it's important to you. And if you could kind of tell me why it's so important, why you have not sold any of that scrub other than to me. I'm family.
I mean, you know, I think it's to me, I see this as the experience of my life that's like everybody who started the ball python game or the retic game. Today we got a scrub python from our good friend Blake Wilson. He brought a pretty fresh import. It was labeled as a Key Island scrub python. There has never been one of those in captivity in my knowledge. I've seen some pictures and videos of it, and I'm over here like, this is probably what people felt like when Noah would send a you know, an envelope overseas of this grainy picture of a ball python and be like, this could be nothing, but my life will be incomplete if I don't take a chance on this. And this animal gets here today, and I look at it, I'm like, what the fuck am I holding?
And I didn't know any of this until
Like,
now.
This is like, this is a special animal. This grainy Samsung phone picture video that I saw through Facebook Messenger that I was like, is that even a snake? Like, I'll remember that moment for the rest of my life.
Oh, yeah.
Of this is a brand new animal, and
You got it in your hands.
yeah, and, this could be the start of the next green tree python market, the next reticulated, and to me, just these are like, this is the formation of what we'll be talking about in 20 years.
100%. And I want you guys to take real close note to the next couple of vlogs I put out. 3-part video of a facility tour over at Reptile and KOBYLKA Cafe. I want you to count how many times he says this animal is very special. Steven, and he's not kidding.
Oh, yeah.
He literally displays every animal. He's like, so this is a very special specimen. And it's like, to hear it come out of his voice with the same energy with every animal, it's like, dude, he really thinks every one of them is, it's kind of like calling everyone your best friend.
Yeah.
But you mean it.
But genuine.
Genuinely mean it.
Yeah.
And honestly, Steven, I feel like if anyone could be in charge of such a great project that has not been tapped in yet, the scrub game is in good hands, bro. And we have people like Ryan McVEIGH, who's honestly been around, and I feel like the collaboration on both ends. And if you guys are wondering, like, why these 3 guys, well, here you have somebody who's already made a legacy with ball pythons, and it's not ending anytime soon. And in my opinion, I feel like somebody who has been passionately desired about these scrub pythons and see no end in sight with them. And then I have somebody who wants to change the world you see no matter what reptile. I don't give a fuck if it's a gecko, if it's a scrub python, ball python, wants to bring everything together. And I just feel like that's what's important with what's happening right here.
Yeah.
And I really do feel strongly about VidTech and you collaborating with giants like Justin KOBYLKA and Stephen KUSH and making this more of a notability thing that like this fucking, I don't know, like the enrichment is a huge factor.
Oh yeah.
Just how I believe in fresh water changes, that's part of enrichment. Isn't it? Am I tripping? I'm gonna throw a
Absolutely.
sandal at somebody.
And I think MJ, the best part of your point, when we were talking about this episode, I think it was so fitting to do on TINLEY weekend, having perspective from different aspects of the hobby,
Way different too.
but all tying it into, this is how, we could have a similar mindset about this, coming from different areas, teach each other, expand each other's minds from, like, for me, I've learned so much about keeping snakes from keeping monitors and listening to how monitor people think about keeping their animals. Or even, my dad is very into horse breeding and
Shout out to
training.
Ken. Ken's my boy.
But and I would talk to him a lot growing up. We would compare the world of horses and reptiles. And, he was doing that his entire life, had no interest in reptiles, was supportive of me, and found a fascination of how similar these two worlds are. I think kind of collaborating with different aspects of what we do is how we're going to gain this kind of unified, broadened mindset that is going to push us forward. That's why I thought this was such an important episode to do, was get this multitude of perspective from people who are pushing this hobby forward, kind of seeing common grounds and picking off of one another to kind of continue what we're already trying to do in the first place and to try to bring people along with it.
We're all running in different directions. Our net movement is nowhere.
Right. But then yet we're all going in the same wind direction.
Well, that's why we have to
That's
keep
what we
doing
want.
that. That's why we got to talk. That's why we got to get behind the stuff that's happening.
And listen, I have a hot seat, one hot seat question that's going to go around. Who am I going to start it with? Justin. Yeah, you. If you could delete one industry standard that just always bugged you, just one industry standard that's never really
Good
made sense
question.
to you, what would you delete?
Just one.
Just, Brian, we don't have one last.
I think we should start with him.
No, I want to start with you.
industry standard.
Right.
I mean, what's the example of an industry standard?
So
Like
for
an
instance,
assumption that we have.
Here's one, right? Like, oh, if you spot clean good enough, you do not need to change the substrate for up to 6 months. Like, there's just one. I mean, that's just one. Or how about this? Like,
It only grows to the size of the tank it lives in.
Oh, there you go.
just something. Don't help them. Don't.
That's, no,
fucking
I'm
help
just saying,
them.
like, that was
No,
the
I
weakest
wanna
ass
hear them.
answer.
Yeah,
you could
no,
possibly
I
give.
wouldn't have allowed that.
No, wait,
That's
yeah,
terrible.
That's what I'm saying. That was like a horrible, good example.
I think for me, there's this understanding that, well, sometimes reptiles, it's just okay. I don't know. I think about ball pythons specifically, but sometimes they just don't eat, which is technically true, but I think most people use it as a cop-out to not evaluate what they're doing or make changes. We tend to think, well, if we just do this, if we check these boxes, then we can't be responsible for what happens after that. Right, you know, we got the temperatures right, it's in a tub. Yeah. Well, if it dies, it dies. That's sort of mentality, which I see some people have, where there's lots of things you can do. I would say that it's not thinking outside the box, not researching is kind of a lame excuse.
Ryan, one, please, one.
How about
Okay, couple.
How about
Give me one, two,
how
one, two.
about this one? And I got blocked by somebody recently for bringing this one up.
This is gonna get good.
Yeah. So how about that? An animal successfully reproducing means nothing to how healthy it is.
True.
That means jack shit.
I always thought a breeding animal was a happy animal.
It's garbage.
And Eric Lee shit on me for that. He's like, that is not. He's like, bro, he was a guard in the military system.
Yep.
And he saw like men doing stuff. And
Oh,
he's
yeah.
like, so that don't stop shit
No,
in the
and-
most nastiest like conditions. And I was like, okay.
How are homeless crack babies a thing?
Oh my
Like, think about it.
Woo.
Pretty sure they're not healthy, but they're breeding.
No.
It's humans, everybody, anything can do that.
It can
And then when it
happen.
comes to a lot of animals, their basic instinct is to pass on their genetics. So they'll breed themselves to death in some instances.
Right.
So like I got this argument.
Lowest form.
Yeah, I got in an argument with this guy, and he's like, I've been doing it for 20 years. What's your one marker for health? And I'm like, I don't have a one marker. That's like looking at my daughter and putting a thermometer in my mouth and be like, you don't have a fever, you're fine. Doesn't matter that both of your legs are cut off and you're bleeding out. Your temperature's fine. Like, that has nothing to do with health. It's a whole thing. So I would say, like, one thing, understand that, but then take that and critically think about husbandry. Stop looking at it as like a broad stroke brush, like the spinulosis. Everybody says monitors need a 150-degree basking spot. Where they live, they don't have a spot on the ground that gets to 150 degrees. So why would that be a thing? So, like, critically think about the husbandry information you're given. Like bearded dragons switching their diet when they hit maturity. It's all garbage.
And ask more than one person, you feel like, too. Like, because at the end of the day, I feel like somebody latches on to only one piece of information.
Ask a bunch of people and then take that thing and go, okay, how in the wild does this make sense? The bearded dragon thing is a good example. In a standard in husbandry is as babies, it's 80% insects, 20% veggies. And then as an adult, you flip it. Where in the world is the Disney habitat that when you become sexually mature, your desert turns into a lush rainforest of food to eat?
habitat?
Yeah, like you can't, like sparkles come down and you become mature and the rainforest grows out of the ground. That's not a thing.
Like Ferngully?
Yeah, like that's not how it works. The reason that that's a husbandry standard is because when bearded dragons came in the early 90s, late 80s, they were being fed in a bowl superworms. So they were all getting fatty liver and dying. And the veterinarians, because everybody anthropomorphizes and says, I eat 3 meals a day, my dog eats twice a day, it needs to eat every day. They were feeding it and the animals were dying of fatty livers, and the veterinarians couldn't get them to understand biologically they're not the same thing. Don't feed them like that. So they changed the diet to go, they're omnivores. Feed them way more lettuce because it's dead empty calories and it stopped people from killing their animals. It has nothing to do with their wild diet.
Hard to follow.
That's why I should have said he should have went last.
Sorry.
Hard to follow and also kind of not make a similar point. I think I'll tell just like a brief kind of story experience that I've had in the last kind of year of keeping reptiles. In the last year or so, we've gotten into keeping venomous reptiles. And part of me wanting to do that came from, I want to set a good example for people who have this aspiration of, this is what I think is the right way to do it. We have big display enclosures where I, just looked at pictures of these species habitats, tried to do my best to replicate it. And the biggest thing I've seen, I think a lot of people, they think rattlesnakes or like Bitis, and they think large-bodied, ground-dwelling snakes.
Not true.
At the peak hours of the day, I walk into our Montane room where all of our venomous reptiles are, and like every single one is off the ground, under their UV light primarily.
Isn't it as soon as the lights come on too? Like I mean, they're hidden.
Well, and the thing is, they have this day cycle. So another thing that we do, all right, this could be one thing. Why do we have an 8 to 8 basking period? Why do we have an 8 to 8 basking period? Where in the world is that spot going to be that temperature from 8 to 8?
But
Or how about your lights go noon, midnight, midnight? There's no crepuscular. That's what, like, so the VivTech bulbs, I made them dimmable now, and I'm excited to see as people use it. Okay, so I have one that kicks on at 7, slowly ramps up till 11. That's the time frame that crepuscular animals live. What is that going to look like for geckos and things that are kept when we finally provide the time of day they actually exist at?
So part of this for me, the overhead like ambient lights come on at 8 a.m. They're on a dimmer for about half an hour. They're ramping up. And then by 10 o'clock, that's when the basking lights start coming on. They start moving when that basking spot comes on. They move around, find their basking spot, sit there until like half an hour until after it's off, and then they slowly meander their way back to where they're going to be before. To me, seeing what I feel like is a natural movement pattern in an animal in captivity has been one of the most rewarding experiences of my keeping life.
Absolutely.
I love it. Or for me, I was actually shocked. We have a trio of Bitis parviocula, the Ethiopian mountain vipers. Incredible snakes. Short, fat, gaboon viper looking snakes. These are some of the most arboreal acting snakes I have ever experienced. And I didn't set their cage up to be too arboreal. I honestly put sticks in there for aesthetic purposes because it kind of fit the room. These things climb more than most snakes that you would assume climb. I would have never known that if I hadn't thought outside the box a little bit. That really changed my perspective on keeping of, what, like, can I keep the snake in a rack? Sure. Would it do fine? Yes. Is its health necessarily extremely different based on how I'm keeping it? I don't think in my position I could necessarily say. My experience as a keeper has been incredible based on my ability to see these animals act naturally in captivity. And
that's a real
I think if more people take the chance on a new species that you think is interesting, find somebody who's doing it, ask questions respectfully, try to emulate what's successful, and just try to enjoy it. And from a business standpoint, remember that everything that is cool and is in was not at one point.
Yes.
And you can start that.
Dude,
for me. That
T-birds were not in. Trust me.
My collection was the most garbage snakes in the hobby 15 years ago. Now I could buy a new house. Like,
yeah.
Oh my God,
So,
it's getting raw out there.
Yeah,
but listen,
we're getting rowdy here at Tinley, but I think that's it for me. That's what I think I'd love to see as a change.
I just want to wrap this up to say thank you to all of you, more than just coming together for this podcast, but just listen. MJ is fired up. You know I'm fired up, Justin. J-Rock, my boy J-Rock in this building. J-Rock. Ryan, you believe in me because I know you feel something behind everything I believe in.
Yeah.
KUSH. Not only is this guy one of my best friends, but he deals with a lot. I feel so sorry for him. But thank you. But what I gotta say is, I believe in you guys so much, and I feel like the reason why I'm so easily hyped up for something like this is because the direction you guys are all going. So I do want to say personally, thank you, Justin. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, one of my best friends on this earth, Stephen KUSH, for doing what you guys are doing. And then thank you to all the viewers out there for taking the time to listen to people who really mean a lot to me. So before you guys head out, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and get some fucking VivTech bulbs in your enclosures. I'm just kidding. But guys, thank you so much. Matthew Summers, close us out. We're out. Thank you so much.